People love to say they're too busy. It's the universal excuse, but the reality is being too busy is often just another way of saying I'm not clear on what matters most. When your life lacks alignment, you start filling it with things that don't serve your deepest needs. You become reactive, not intentional, and that's the difference between living a life of purpose and living a life of pressure. Most people are busy out of habit, not necessity. They wake up, check their phones, dive into emails, race from one commitment to another, and by the time the day ends, they feel drained but strangely unfulfilled. They confuse movement with progress and effort with meaning, but Tony Robbins says clarity is power. If you're not clear on your values, you can't possibly align your time with them. And when your time isn't aligned, you end up exhausted and empty. When you tell yourself you're too busy, ask, too busy for what? Too busy to take care of your health, too busy to build a meaningful relationship, too busy to pursue your true calling. If the answer is yes, then what exactly are you making time for? You see, time isn't the issue. Every person has the same 24 hours. The question is, what are you committed to in those hours? You can always make time for what you prioritize. But most people don't live by priorities. They live by patterns. They say yes to everything because they don't want to disappoint others. They avoid silence because they're afraid of what they might hear in stillness, so they stay busy constantly. But busyness is a drug. It numbs the deeper questions. Am I fulfilled? Am I growing? Am I living in alignment with who I want to be? When your calendar is filled with tasks that don't reflect your purpose, your life begins to drift. And you don't even notice it at first, but over time you feel a creeping sense of frustration, of emotional fatigue. You can't quite name it, but it's there. It's the cost of misalignment, because deep down you know you're not living your truth. You're just performing tasks. The danger isn't just in being busy. It's in being busy doing the wrong things. If you're spending your time putting out fires that don't belong to you, sacrificing your values to meet someone else's expectations, or chasing goals that don't resonate with your heart, then you're not just busy, you're disconnected. Tony Robbins often talks about the power of standards. Your time reflects your standards. If you accept low standards for how you spend your energy, you'll keep living the same cycle, overwhelmed, overcommitted, underfulfilled. But when you raise your standards and get honest about what actually matters, everything changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop people pleasing. You start making decisions based on purpose, not pressure. That's where freedom lives. That's where peace begins, because clarity cuts through the noise. And when you have clarity, you're not too busy, you're focused. You're intentional, you're aligned, so the next time you hear yourself say, I'm too busy, stop. Ask what you're really avoiding. Ask what you're giving your time to. Ask whether that busyness is helping you grow or just helping you escape. Because when you get real about what matters, you stop letting the world pull you in every direction. You take your power back. You don't need more time, you need more alignment. And alignment begins the moment you stop glorifying busy and start honoring truth. In today's world, it's easy to confuse being busy with being productive. From the outside, your schedule might look full, your calendar packed, your phone buzzing nonstop. You're constantly doing something, working, responding, multitasking. But if you stop and ask yourself what's actually changing, what you're truly moving forward, you might realize that despite all that activity, real progress is missing. Tony Robbins says, most people major in minor things. That's the trap of modern life. You get caught up in the urgency of tasks that aren't actually important, and you end up neglecting the few things that could really transform your life. We've all had days where we've checked off 10 different things from a to-do list, only to end the day wondering why we still feel stuck. That's because there's a difference between movement and momentum. Movement is scattered, chaotic, often reactive. Momentum is focused, deliberate, and powerful. When you're stuck in the cycle of busyness, you're constantly reacting to what's in front of you instead of designing what's ahead of you. That's not progress, that's survival mode. You spend your days extinguishing one fire after another, but none of it builds anything lasting. It just wears you down, and over time you start to believe that this is what life is supposed to feel like: exhausting, relentless, overwhelming. But that's a lie. Real progress demands intention. It demands that you take a step back and ask, where am I going? What am I creating? What does success actually look like for me? Without those questions, you'll find yourself climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. You might get to the top only to realize you never wanted to be there in the first place. That's the cost of unconscious busyness. It can take years from your life and leave you feeling like you've achieved nothing that truly matters. Tony Robbins talks about the power of purpose-driven living. When you align your time and energy with a clear vision, you don't just get more done, you get the right things done. And that's what creates fulfillment. You stop spinning your wheels and start building momentum in a direction that lights you up. You stop living like a firefighter and start living like a creator. Because progress isn't just about doing more. It's about doing what matters most consistently. One of the most damaging beliefs people carry is that being busy equals being valuable. So they stay busy to feel important, to prove they're needed, to avoid the guilt of slowing down. But when your value is tied to how packed your schedule is, you lose touch with your deeper worth. You forget that your value comes from who you are, not how much you can handle at once. Being constantly overwhelmed doesn't mean you're doing well. It means you're operating without a system, without strategy, without clarity. The shift happens when you decide to stop glorifying busyness and start demanding results. Not just any results, results that reflect your goals, your vision, your deepest values. That means learning to say no. That means letting go of perfectionism and focusing on progress. That means simplifying your life so you can focus your energy where it counts. Every time you choose focused action over frantic activity, you're reclaiming your power. You're turning chaos into clarity. You're stepping out of reaction and into creation. So ask yourself, are you busy or are you making progress? Are you chasing tasks or achieving transformation? Because one will keep you trapped in a cycle of burnout, while the other will set you free. The most successful people in the world aren't the busiest, they're the most focused. They don't do more, they do what matters most. And that's the difference between a life that's full and a life that's fulfilling. So many people wear their busyness like armor, thinking it makes them look strong, accomplished, or in control. But the truth is, a lot of that constant motion is just a distraction. Deep down, people often stay busy to avoid facing what's really going on inside them. They don't want to sit in silence because they're afraid of what they'll feel. They don't want to stop because stopping means dealing with fears, doubts, and emotions they've been pushing away for years. Tony Robbins often says that people will do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure, and for many, busyness becomes the go-to strategy for pain avoidance. It's socially acceptable, it's even praised, but that doesn't mean it's healthy or honest. There's a reason why when people finally take a break or go on vacation, they feel this strange wave of anxiety at first. The noise is gone, the distractions are gone, and what's left is what they've been avoiding: thoughts about who they really are, what they really want, and whether the life they've built actually fulfills them. That's why people jump back into their schedules the moment they return. The routine, the calls, the endless tasks. They act like noise, canceling headphones for the soul. But the silence holds the truth, and growth only comes when you're willing to face it. Avoiding fear doesn't remove it, it just buries it deeper. And buried fear becomes emotional clutter. It shows up in your relationships, your decisions, your health. It influences how you show up in the world, often in ways you don't even realize. Tony teaches that if you want to change your life, you have to break your patterns. And the pattern of staying busy to avoid fear is one of the most deeply rooted, most dangerous patterns of all. Because it keeps you trapped in a loop, always doing, never feeling, always moving, never healing. You might achieve success on the surface, but internally you're disconnected from yourself. When you allow yourself to slow down, not just physically, but emotionally, you give yourself space to confront what's been running your life from the background. Maybe it's the fear of not being enough. Maybe it's the fear of failure or rejection. Maybe it's the fear that if you stop performing, people will stop valuing you. Whatever it is, facing it is the only way to grow through it. You can't heal what you don't acknowledge. And you can't acknowledge anything when you're always rushing to the next task, the next meeting, the next obligation. Tony often says, the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. If your life is filled with anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, it's not because you're doing too little. It's because you're doing too much of the wrong things for the wrong reasons. The real courage isn't in doing more. The real courage is in being still long enough to feel what needs to be felt, to look in the mirror and ask, what am I running from? Because the moment you face that truth, you regain control. You take your power back from the fear that's been silently steering your decisions. This isn't about doing nothing. This is about doing from a place of power, not from a place of panic. It's about choosing actions that are aligned, not automatic. It's about recognizing that your time is your life, and if you're spending it running from your emotions, you're not truly living. You're managing, you're coping, but you're not expanding. When you finally stop using busyness as a shield, something incredible happens. You start showing up differently. You become more honest, more present, more connected. You make better decisions because they're no longer fear-based. You attract deeper relationships because you're no longer hiding behind a wall of constant activity. You stop operating from fear and start operating from truth. And that's where real growth begins. That's where fulfillment lives. Not in doing more, but in being real. Every single decision you make, every yes and every no, is shaping the life you're living right now. Most people don't realize that the quality of their life has less to do with how much they're doing and more to do with what they're choosing. Tony Robbins says, your life is a reflection of the decisions you make daily. When you say yes to things out of guilt, fear, or habit, you're saying no to the things that could move you closer to your vision. And over time, those small decisions create a massive gap between where you are and where you want to be. The truth is, people often say they're too busy, but what they really mean is they're too committed to the wrong things. They've allowed their lives to become overloaded with obligations, distractions, and expectations that don't align with their true purpose. They're constantly responding to what's urgent rather than what's important, and they end up exhausted, not from working hard, but from working on things that don't matter to them. You don't just need more time, you need better boundaries. You need to become ruthless with your focus and intentional with your energy. The ability to say no is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Every yes costs you something, your time, your energy, your mental space. And when you keep saying yes to the wrong things, you have nothing left for what truly matters. That's why Tony teaches that the key to an extraordinary life is not doing more, but doing what matters most. It's not about filling every minute. It's about investing your time where it counts. If you don't take control of your schedule, someone else will. If you don't set your priorities, the world will set them for you, and they usually won't be in your favor. Saying no can feel uncomfortable. You might fear disappointing others. You might worry about missing out. But every no to something unaligned is a yes to something that fulfills you. It's a yes to your health, your relationships, your mission, your peace of mind. It's a declaration that your life is your own. You're not here to be everything to everyone. You're here to live fully, and that requires discernment. It requires clarity about what you want and the courage to protect it. It also requires a shift in identity. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone who's only valuable when they're doing everything for everyone else. You have to start valuing yourself enough to protect your time and energy like your life depends on it, because it does. The most successful and fulfilled people aren't the ones doing the most. They're the ones who have mastered the art of doing what matters and eliminating what doesn't. That's not selfish, that's strategic. That's how you create a life that's not just full but meaningful. When you get clear on your values and commit to them with intention, your decisions become easier. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop chasing approval. You operate from purpose, not pressure. And suddenly, life feels different. Not because it got easier, but because you stopped scattering your energy. You started leading your life instead of reacting to it. You began to move from chaos to clarity, from busyness to fulfillment. So next time you're about to say yes, pause. Ask yourself, does this align with who I want to be? Does this serve the life I'm building? If the answer is no, let it go, because your time is sacred. Your energy is limited, and your mission is too important to be buried under obligations that don't move you forward. When you learn to say no to what drains you, you create space for what drives you. That's how you transform busy into powerful. That's how you build a life that reflects your truth.